Okay, I'd like to call this special committee of the whole meeting together. It's February 2nd at 5:03. Eddie, would you please call the roll?
Cobb.
Here.
Larson. Posh.
Here.
DeWitt Foy.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
Kuda.
Here. Okay, we're here for the confirmation hearing for the finance director position. Joe Brzezinski is here and the mayor is here. And Mayor, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just briefly say that this was a very difficult position to fill. We received 49 applications, and I think a lot of cities would be really pleased to find a candidate who has 30 years of municipal finance experience. Well, Mr. Brzezinski has 30 years of being a municipal finance director. And so I'm very excited about the experience that he brings to this position. And I look forward to council members being able to ask him questions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brzezinski, would you like to make a opening statement if you want?
Well, I could give a quick briefing on my background.
Sure.
I've known since I was in the 7th grade, I was going to go into accounting. I was going to go to Ohio State. I accomplished both. While at Ohio State, I was an intern for the state auditor's office. I was working on state audits of state agencies in the Columbus area. I left for a year to go into the private sector. I came back under the state auditors, what at the time was Management Advisory Services. Now it's LGS, Local Government Services, but it's the consulting arm of the state auditor's office. I worked there for a few years, ended up going to Oakwood Village, became the chief finance officer there, couldn't be the finance director because I didn't live in Oakwood. They were unauditable at the time. I got them auditable. But what was hard about that was you're looking back trying to get those days, but then current days are also going. So yeah, I spent a lot of time, got them auditable. Ended up going to the city of Lakewood as the assistant finance director. Worked there for a few years, and then I ended up at the longest part of my career so far, city of Cuyahoga Falls. Spent 4 years being the assistant finance director. Finance director, stepped down to want to be income tax administrator. I got promoted for 16 years. I was finance director of the city of Cuyahoga Falls. Left there after a new mayor came in and ended up going to the city of Pepper Pike, where I was finance director, treasurer, city administrator. Worked there for 11 years, and then I sat back when I got my first new grandchild and said, when have I ever had a summer off? And I could afford to take the summer off. I took summer off, spent a lot of time with my grandchild down in Columbus, accomplished my goal. My daughter now lives in Independence, Ohio, so it's no longer a 2-hour drive. And as soon as the summer is over, I started looking for a fit that I would certainly enjoy and go back to work, because I like working in municipal finance.
Wonderful, thank you. So we'll open it up to questions from council. Who would like to go first? Nobody. All right, always Gail. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you for coming to speak to us today. Your resume states that you passed the CPA exam in Virginia. Do you have any other professional certificates and/or licenses?
I do not have any licenses. I've done training along throughout my career, going to the advanced government accounting school and stuff like that. And I stay current with the requirements through as the treasurer through the Ohio Treasurer's website.
Thank you. That was a short question, so I'd like to have a longer one.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned on your application that you, quote unquote, created a new accounting system for the city of Lakewood. We are currently using New World and have budgeted in 2026 to install new financial software. From your experience working with several financial software packages, what features should our new software have?
Not overly complex, functional, a good support group that's well-versed in training new clients. When I was in Cuyahoga Falls, ironically, we had New World software. But that was with the green screen, and they were just rolling out their window-based model. And in our utility billing department, we had SunGuard, which their product was HTE. And we really liked what it was doing for utility billing. And we sat around and talked and said, let's make the conversion, because there were a lot of facets about New World that we weren't crazy with. So then we switched over our financials to HTE.
Can you name one facet of New World that you didn't particularly like or that they didn't particularly like?
I can name a couple.
Go ahead.
For starters, anytime you wanted a modification on something, I felt like in the back room they had a board and they just spun the wheel, and whatever number it landed on, that's what you were going to pay. We were a longtime customer, and our police department wanted a module for bicycle licenses. And they gave us assurances, oh, it could do X, Y, and Z. And our police said, great, because we want X, Y, and Z. Well, we give the initial down payment of $10,000. And they said, we're going to work on giving you X, Y, Z. So we decided we don't want to be part of New World. And even though from the police side, we had them for reporting and finance for a lot of years, they would not give us our $10,000 back. They said, if you find another vendor, we will give them your $10,000, but they wouldn't give it. And that was a huge part of starting the ball to get rid of New World.
Thank you. And just one of my concerns has always been with this current software, the reporting, the capability to just set up custom reports and let them run. With New World is just not practical and reasonable. So that's another feature that I'm very concerned about, hoping that the newest technology will give our finance people a reprieve on having to do a bunch of spreadsheets.
Correct.
So thank
I
you.
would agree.
Councilwoman Cohen, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, if no one else is waiting, I'm happy to. I was curious about your experience with debt service and potential refinancing. We have a significant amount of debt service as part of the Leopardo agreement that was entered into in the previous administration. And I would love to know over your career how you have thought about reducing interest rates, refinancing, and maximizing our finances through conservative or meaningful investment.
I'm well versed in it. In Cuyahoga Falls, we issue debt quite often. And I've been to New York, I've been to Chicago, I've done it online with Moody's to get rated. Depending on the structure of the debt that we're talking about. Sometimes, like for example, on what you just mentioned, it would make sense. I always used a financial advisor's, Stifel Nichols, where they run the numbers for us and see if it makes sense. If you're dealing with special assessment debt with the people, a lot of times it doesn't make sense because you got to track all these people back down. But I've refinanced several times in the city of Cuyahoga Falls.
Okay, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure seeing you again. I just want to, just for the record, I was on a call with you earlier. Very enjoyable, very productive, very enlightening for me to get a better understanding of your capabilities.
Thank you.
I really wasn't prepared to ask any questions, but you mentioned Stifel Nichols and the ability to work with our, possibly debt service. But if we had to raise bonds, and I believe we do have some bonds for the city. I mean, they're a good bond counsel. I mean, have you used them, I guess, in a bond counsel?
On council with Squires, utilizing Squires,
Okay.
both in Cuyahoga Falls and in Pepper Pike.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So you've got good relationships. You've worked with bonds. If we decided to issue bonds for, let's say, a relatively large project that could be on the horizon, it's
Right. Oh, no
in your
problem.
wheelhouse.
I mean, obviously there'll be some steps along the way, making sure the financials are current, and also getting rated again.
And that's the next question, getting rated again. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Well, I would first get to know the lay of the land, find out what happened, why it happened, what we could put in place to make sure it doesn't happen going forward. Then I would sit down and analyze all the debt that's currently out there, along with all the various funds that the city has. Sometimes funds are set up for no good purpose, and you got 1 million funds. Do you need 1 million funds? Is there a reason to have these funds? If not, a lot of that money could get reconsolidated back to the general fund. And then once you have that picture and then you're on firm grounds, then I would recommend a meeting with Moody's. But I've probably gone to 3 meetings in New York for Moody's and a couple conference calls in Chicago. I was there, ironically, 1 week before 9/11. And we looked up at the building as we're getting ready to go into Moody's. And I said, it's amazing that there was a bomb underneath it and the building didn't come down. And of course, my mayor, he's more like the cheerleader at these bond council meetings because they really want to talk finances. He's sitting there eating a bagel. He's like, would you like a bagel? I said, no, I've got no appetite right now. I've got to go to Moody's. But we also got our first bond upgrade in a 25-year period in the city of Cuyahoga Falls while I was there.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Piggybacking off of that just a bit, as you've been able to begin to familiarize yourself with the finances and the picture here in Cleveland Heights, could you talk about some of the strengths and opportunities for improvement that you've seen? And then also, how would you position the city to, take advantage of those and maybe protect against some of the challenges that we're facing?
Well, Councilman, to be honest with you, I've come with no preconceived notions. I would like to get in, meet my staff, meet with the new city administrator, the mayor, find out priorities, meet with the various departments. And as I'm meeting with my staff, I would sit down and, because I've got an open door policy, I like to listen as well as talk. I would like to find out from them, from their perspective, what do they see that could be done better to improve their role in Cleveland Heights, as well as when I meet with the outside departments, I'd get a feel for how strong are they monitoring their budget, et cetera, and what would they see that finance could provide that would be able to help them do their jobs better for the residents of the community.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I really don't have any questions. We met before and chatted. And you assured me when we talked that you would be the kind of finance director that could say no when you thought city council was maybe not being prudent about the spending.
Absolutely, and I would explain why. Chances are we would have enough of open communication that it certainly wouldn't occur at a council meeting. If you would call and want to bang an idea off, I would suggest, I don't think that's a good idea for XYZ, and have an open two-way conversation on everything that goes on in the city here.
Okay. Have you had a chance to meet the person that I think we're going to vote on tonight for city administrator? Have you chatted with him at all yet?
I have not.
Okay. That was all I had.
So I'm looking on your resume. I don't see the number of employees that you had underneath you at Cuyahoga Falls and then Pepper Pike. Could you elaborate on that you supervised?
Well, in Cuyahoga Falls, I had 8 people in the finance department. Mm-hmm. I had 7 people in IT. I had 5 people in income tax. I had a print shop person, utility billing, 12 or 13. And between the service director and I, we both supervised the HR department.
Oh.
Which was 3 people.
So you talked about, what you would do in the short term, get to know the staff, find out what everybody thinks about their job and how that could be done better and so forth, but more long range, like, the software. As you've spoken with Mayor Petrus, what have you talked about for long range goals for your stint here in Cleveland Heights?
Well, I think once you get the lay of the land and the short-term stuff, the next thing that I also want to meet with the third-party vendors that finance utilizes to find out, the company that's putting together the financial statements, as well as touch base with the state auditors who I believe are doing the audit. Or is it James Zupka? I'm not sure. Zupka. I dealt with that group for many years in Cuyahoga Falls. And I'd also want to meet with the investment people, which I believe you're utilizing Fifth Third.
That's one of them.
For investments. Certainly meet with the law department to talk about when's the next round of union negotiations to start prepping for that, as well as focusing on getting a complete handle on the debt. So when it's time to go for issue bonds, we're ready to go. All the work's done. Everything's back in place where it belongs. So we feel confident when we go to Moody's, we get a favorable bond rating.
So talk about the process of looking over the budget and all the line items. And you said sometimes there are, just stuff that's parsed out that doesn't need to be, in a separate line and so forth, and moving money over to the general fund. What does that process look like?
Well, I would look at all the various accounts for all the various funds and find out, are they all needed? And I'm not saying it's here, but if there was, automotive parts, transmission, automotive parts, brakes, automotive parts, I would look to see, because at least what I'm familiar with is generally whoever handles the mechanics, they have their own software for that. For my purposes, it would be automotive parts. You wouldn't necessarily have 5 or 6 different accounts for that. So I look to see where you could consolidate wherever possible, shrink the chart of accounts, which will also help when you go and ultimately end up switching software. You've got a more condensed version to run with that's clean.
So that condenses things, but what would you do to, how would you make a decision when an account looked like it was never going to be touched and you would want to transfer money over to the general fund?
So you're speaking if there's a fund that has money that with no activity,
Yeah,
and I want to roll back into the general fund.
right.
Well, I would first try to research and find out why the fund was set up and why was it never utilized. And then make a determination, because sometimes to close funds, you actually have to go through the court, clerk of courts or common police court, and they allow you to move the money back to the general fund. I find that ironic because the judge that you're going to talk to has no idea what you're talking about. But it's a step that's in Ohio Revised Code. That's something you'd have to do. So if it made sense and the mayor agreed, the city administrator agreed, we would look to roll that back into the general fund.
I see. Go ahead.
So one of the things Council President Kuda mentioned was sort of long-term plans. One of the things that was very attractive in the conversation that we had was your thoughts about forecasting, specifically a 5-year.
I am very familiar and have always done a 5-year forecast for all funds within the city. And that is something certainly that I would look to do here. The capital projects fund's a little different. I mean, there are certain things you buy every year. At Pepper Pike, we always bought a scooter for the trash every year. Police, we always bought 3 vehicles every year. So those are something you could take to the bank 5 years down the road. I would also, others, maybe not. So I'd be meeting with the police chief, the fire chief, the city engineer. Does the city engineer rate all the roads within Cleveland Heights? If so, what's your worst roads? What would it cost to repair those roads? And then try to slot in that money for street maintenance on a yearly basis for 5 years. And another long-term plan, obviously, and I don't think we discussed it on our Zoom call, but when you go to do a financial conversion of software, that's a huge, lengthy process. That's nothing that will be accomplished in 3 to 6 months. It'll take a year or more, because they'll come to a point where you're actually running dual systems and making sure you're getting the same data out of both systems before you feel comfortable that, okay, it's time to pull a switch. So that's a lengthy process. Because you go through the investigation, what does your software provide? What does your software provide? And you go from there.
Oh, go ahead. Did you have a follow-up? Not a follow-up. Go ahead, Council Vice President.
Our general fund 101 unencumbered is what we look at as our cash reserve. And when we get requests for unbudgeted items during the year, that's where we look. As of December 31st, 2025, that balance was $17.893 million, and we've been advised we should maintain a balance of $20 million. So this early in the year, how would you advise us to look at unbudgeted requests that come from the administration?
Well, I would start by asking you, who advised the $20 million balance?
We got that from the finance department and from the previous mayor.
GFOA, Government Finance Officer Association, says a solid balance is anywhere between 5 and 20% of your general spend on an annual basis. Obviously, if you go higher, that's a huge positive. If you go too high, then the question becomes, are you taxing the people too much or not spending it where you should be spending it? So I would certainly analyze that
Okay.
before I would come up with a number of $20 million.
So I can ask you that again later on.
You most certainly can.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So the city hasn't really prepared CAFRs in a long time. What do you think about CAFRs and making them publicly available? And
Niagara Falls, we did a CAFR. And I had the expertise on staff to be able to do it in-house. Pepper Pike, just the general financial statements, are much smaller. It goes both ways. I would say that the rating agencies would obviously want a CAFR because in their minds, the more the better. But they're also very comfortable with just general financial statements. It would be a goal to work to something like that back again? Sure. Can we do it in-house? That's to be determined depending on the staff.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to consider the appointment of a public official.
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? Eddie, call the roll, please.
Cobb,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Posh,
aye.
DeWitt Foy,
Aye.
Cohen,
Aye.
Kuda.
Aye. Okay, we're out of executive session. We're going to go over to the committee of the whole at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 5:55.